Yeah, welcome back to another Cataclysm Class Set card review. Thought today was Mage, had that video prepped and scheduled and ready to go, but it's Paladin. Whoops, so I'm late. As if I needed more of a delay today. This is Erator the Redeemer. We saw this one on day one. You may remember here kicking off the Silver Hand Recruit Synergy package for this class set. We also saw Emboldening Blade. Some concerns on this one for sort of its speed, you know, a 3-2 weapon on turn 5. That's sort of just a long-term setup with a this game buff on your Silver Hand recruits. But it is a great way to get some base stats on those recruits so that when Erator comes down and he hits those recruits on board, they might go from like 3-3 to 6-6 instead of just 1-1 to 2-2. Because I think, you know, doubling the stats of your 1-1 Silver Hand recruits, not super exciting play for Erator. And do keep in mind, this is just an onboard effect, not a this game effect. It's not like hitting ones in hand or future ones or anything. So this is kind of a one-time push. This is your long-term scaling. And we're also going to see more long-term scaling from our next card, a newly revealed today. This is the Brash Battle Master, a 2-mana 2/1 rush. With Death Rattle, give your Silver Hand recruits +1 attack this game. So another way here to boost those Silver Hand recruits, making them a little bit more aggressive. And, you know, a 2/1 rush is fine. I don't think you're crazy excited about it because sometimes you do want to hit, like, you know, 3 health stuff. But it still gives you a little bit of that immediacy that you crave while still setting you up for a longer term upside here with +1 attack, making those Silver Hand recruits both more aggressive to face, but also perhaps just, you know, better trades on board on top of that. So this is a good little first step. Like we've talked about with these class sets a little bit, like with Hunter, I wasn't convinced we had enough animal companion stuff. You need a lot of cards to make these new archetypes sing. There aren't a lot of Silver Hand recruit synergies right now in standard format separately. So, you know, you kind of have to go all in a little bit. There are some Silver Hand cards that summon Silver Hand recruits. Like, you know, we still have, what is it, Muster for battle, but nothing that like boosts them on top of that. So we want a full commitment. So each card like this is a good addition. Okay, well, a toddler just ran by in the background, so we never know what's going on. So anyway, what I'm getting at is, like, you know, I think this is a solid, fine option. If this package gets there, like, you know, this feels okay to include. It's a nice little incremental piece of the puzzle. So that brings us to the Resilient Savior, sort of the other side of this equation, giving a health buff. This is a 3-mana 3/1 Draenei. Divine Shield. After this loses Divine Shield, give your Silver Hand recruits +1 health this game. So again, I think a solid enough play to just kind of throw out there, right? A 3/1 Divine Shield, despite being like a Scarlet Crusader from 12 years ago or whatever. It's still fine, right? You're not upset about that. Sticky enough to take a couple trades, be a little annoying for the opponent. And you're getting this upside of buffing all of your Silver Hand recruits. So, you know, in a deck that's a Silver Hand recruit deck, like a little extra layer of stickiness can help with some value trades. They get taunt later, you know, help them survive. Just every little bit helps. So we like that. I think you probably technically prefer the aggressive attack buff more often than you do the health buff, but still, it all adds up, right? It's all helping, particularly if those stats are getting doubled down the road. Now, do keep in mind, this can also go off multiple times. We actually do have some ways to like refresh Divine Shields in Paladin. So you actually could get, you know, 2 or 3 health technically off of a single Resilient Savior, making some really sticky and annoying Silver Hand recruits down the road. Imagine a bunch of like 1/5 Rager recruits. That would be kind of a nightmare to get through. I don't think that'll happen too often, especially not like, you know, on turn 3, probably not a setup you're looking for, but occasionally, you know, you might roll into that here and there with, you know, we've got the Shatter card giving Divine Shield. So if this hits on 3, Shatter on turn 4, it could actually happen. And then there's ways beyond that as well. So I don't know how all that's going to piece together in a deck construction standpoint. You might not have room for all that. Shatter might not be a great package in that, but nonetheless, it does have some additional upside if you re-shield this. So something to keep in mind, even if that's not really your primary goal here. I think it's really just, again, going to be about density, critical mass, just, you know, running as much Silver Hand recruit synergy stuff as you can for your Silver Hand recruit synergy deck. All right, next up here we have Teamwork, and this definitely feels a bit like the centerpiece Silver Hand recruit card, right? Because hero powers aren't going to get you there, right? You got to have some ways to actually get some recruits into play. And this one is a 4-mana spell that will both summon 4 recruits onto board and add 4 recruits to hand. So you get a nice 1-2 punch here, like some immediacy off these recruits, which, you know, particularly if played on curve like 2, 3, 4, as we just ran through, they might already be 2/2s, like 4 2/2s on turn 4. Actually not a bad development at all, especially if those were to stick into turn 5. Erator could turn those into 4/4s, or I think even more scary, in fact, might be like if you had 2 of the Rush Death Rattle guy and they were all 3/1s that got turned into 6/2s. Imagine like 4 6/2s attacking you on turn 5. Unlikely, because most people are going to be able to deal with a board of smaller Silverhand recruit minions. But, you know, there are some scary propositions. As soon as the opponent doesn't answer one of these, like, man, the doubling becomes so lethal and threatening right away. But then, you know, if the opponent does answer the problem, you still get 4 enhance. You know, you can kind of reload later. Again, you know, just there are going to be turns where playing a couple recruits manually is going to feel totally fine. Turn 8, you play 3 manually with an Erator. They've already been buffed up a bunch. They're like 3/3s or something at that stage. Erator turns them into 6/6s. Like, okay, yeah, that's actually still a nice little solid development later if things didn't go perfectly right away. So it's nice that this has that instant push, but also can set you up for reloads later. The big question for this package for me is actually just going to be like, when do you find the windows basically where like eventually a board sticks and you kill the opponent with the Silverhand recruits? Because you're not going to have enough stuff to just grind them out forever. Like, you don't have a source of endless recruits. We're going to see another recruit card here, but like, you know, you can't just like hit the button and expect to win off your Silverhand recruits. Like, yeah, eventually you'll turn into like an old school Duraxis where you're summoning a 6/6 Silverhand recruit every turn or whatever, but that's not enough to win Hearthstone games in this era. So you do need to make sure you get there on time. Like, the recruits get big enough, they finally stick, you have some lethality out of it, because it can't go forever. And I don't know. This seems like it's a solid window on turn 4, but if you miss your buffs early, you know, 4 1/1s on turn 4 is not great. And the longer you wait to play the ones you've added to hand, that's also going to be harder and harder of a finisher, right? Like, it's, you know, at some point, even if they're 5/5s, like just slamming 4 5/5s on turn 9 or whatever might not be enough. So I do have some concerns about the package in general, but I do think this card looks like it could be the kind of meat that the deck needs basically to get there. So next up here is another solid option, I think, for recruits. This is Convalescence, a 2-mana holy spell. This one's going to summon you 2 1/1 Silverhand recruits with Divine Shield specifically. So again, I like this a lot. The Divine Shield goes a really long way, right? Sometimes that stickiness will matter to make sure they can survive into something like an Erator buff that's doubling them, or weapon attacks, whatever, right? Like, you just kind of want to have some around to buff, and then you use those stats immediately after the buff instead of, you know, passively after a delay. So that's nice. But also just like play this on turn 2. I'm not mad at all. Like, you know, just a couple Divine Shield bodies down early is pretty good tempo in the scheme of things. Any other buff cards as well. That's why I think this card actually could escape the Silverhand package and maybe just be a generally good Paladin card. It's got holy synergies, it's got Divine Shield synergies, and it's got that stickiness on board that's great for buffs as well. We've had like multiple location buff cards, etc. So I think this is not only great for a Silverhand deck, but great beyond that. I think this card's really playable. When we look at the rest of these cards so far, none of them look playable outside of a Silverhand deck, right? I don't even think Teamwork would really make sense, even though it's like a lot of stuff. I think you have to have Silverhand synergies. This one's good across the board, though. I just think this is a good card in general. I think absolutely playable with the multiple different angles of attack here for Paladin to actually synergize with this. All right, so I just solved the toddler catastrophe, which means I'm now ready for our final card of the video. It's Charity, a 3-mana spell that gets you 3 copies of all friendly minions that died this turn, and then gives them +3/+3. So basically trade off a bunch of stuff, and then you can add all of that stuff back to hand with a nice little 3/3 buff. So kind of a value generator here, but also, you know, the ability to push some extra stats as well. I think this is probably a soft Silverhand recruit synergy piece idea where it's like, yeah, I got a board of a bunch of little 1/1 or 2/2 Silverhand recruits, and they're not really doing much yet. So I'm just going to trade those in, kill something off, get 4 giga buffed Silverhand recruits back to hand or whatever. I mean, I kind of see the vision there. It's just all about timing on this one for me. It's like, you know, it's this turn. So it's not even stuff that like your opponent killed, I don't believe will work here with Charity. I think it's going to be stuff you had to trade off or kill yourself. So like, you know, of course, rush minions and stuff play into that, sure. Like we said, if you stick aboard a Silverhand Recruits, like, and you're trading it in, sure. But like, how often is all that really going to align? And then is the payoff really that interesting? Like, you know, just getting some buffed copies in hand, that's fine. I almost like that in theory better with like big battle cry effects, where it's like I'm getting to replay this awesome effect or super key card that was in my deck. But that's even harder sometimes to manipulate that, right? It's like, well, that had to survive a turn, and then I had to trade it off, and then I get to add it back to my hand to replay that effect. Like, how often is that really going to happen? When's that going to line up? So this just looks like one of those cards to me that's going to get like stuck in hand for a long time, and then when it's finally like, oh, I have a moment here where I could actually use this, it's like, well, no, actually, I'd rather just use my Silverhand Recruits to go face, or you know, like, I don't really want to trade them in necessarily, or it's just like, well, I don't want to have to replay all these again and just like delay myself by a turn, even with the buff. So all in all, it just looks clunky to me. I just think it's got some like timing concerns, like when and why do I really want to do this with Charity? Yeah, so that wraps it up for the Paladin class set here. Let's go ahead and rate all these cards from 1 to 5 stars. Erator the Redeemer is a 3-star card. Emboldening Blade is a 2-star card. Brash Battlemaster is a 3-star card. Resilient Savior is a 3-star card. Teamwork is a 3-star card. Convalescence is a 4-star card. Charity is a 2-star card. So all in all, I kind of think this is not quite gonna come together. I think it's like that kind of mid-tier 3 status, maybe. Like, I think the deck will work, it'll function right. I just don't think it'll be like a meta standout. It might be better at lower ranks. This is got the vibe of like a tier 2 deck at low ranks that just falls off crazy hard at high ranks to me. In essence, you know, it's just kind of tokeny. It's just like stats for stats sake. But I just worry it's a bit like Hunter, actually, we looked at previously, where I don't know if they have quite enough still yet, despite most of the cards here actually being Silverhand cards. I think, you know, Emboldening Blades just like pushing things back too far. Like, you know, you're not getting strong maybe until turn 7 or 8 sometimes. And if you don't hit the perfect curve of like Battlemaster, Resilient, Teamwork, then I think your early to mid game is going to struggle as well. I can see some complementary things happening. The Shatter package, some Divine Shield stuff, some aggro stuff can kind of come together to support this all. But then like competing plays on 5, when is Erator coming down? Is he actually going to be able to turn the corner? Just a lot of little hangups on this one, basically. Like, I think it's functional. I think it's fine, but it feels like it could maybe use another 4 to 6 pieces of this, maybe like 2 to 3 cards. I mean to say 4 to 6 in a list of 30, really, to get it there. Because I think right now, I just don't know if there's enough Silverhand stuff in standard. It's basically muster for battle is the only other help this gets. So maybe park these, and then eventually they move up to kind of like 4-tier status, 4-star status. But I still have some real doubts and concerns. This feels like the kind of thing that like looks good on day 1, and then like after a week we're all like, oh yeah, actually Silverhand Recruits really weren't that good, and it kind of falls off. So ultimately, fine. I think fine basically is where I stand on these. But share your thoughts on these cards. Maybe you like them way more than I do. Maybe you're convinced there is enough to get there. I want to hear all those thoughts and more down below. Thanks much as always for watching. Sorry this one was a little late. And until next time, game on.